everyone, Karen the Warp Spinster here. Welcome to my channel. I'm very happy to have you with me today. If you have been following me, you may be able to surmise that I'm going to be working on my Alice Wondering quilt today, using pieces I already have, and perhaps I will need to make some more, but I do have a playlist for the Alice Wondering pieces, and I will make sure that that's up to date so that the various videos that show how I made these pieces will appear in that playlist. So just check that out. That's the Alice Wondering playlist. So I have all of these pieces that follow some exploration that I did, and lots of disparate pieces. That one I can take off some. This big stripe is just a hoot, much bigger than I had anticipated it would be. But anyway, I want to assemble these into some sort of organized chaos, because this is, of course, Alice in Wonderland. So I do think that I will probably need to make some more pieces. I'm pretty sure I want some more of these waves, and may do some more embellishing on some pieces, and then again some pieces are perfectly fine the way they are. Now I didn't want to try to put this up on a design wall for you to see, or even on the floor, because it's just harder to manage. I think it's actually easier for you to see this way. And this is kind of a general layout that I did on the floor a while back, and I think I'm going to stick to this in general, but of course add some pieces in. And I'm not going to try to applique these. I want to try to piece them all in. So I may do some adjustment here. Pardon my not the cleanest rug in the world. It's what comes through from the outside. So I can either cut this straight so that it matches up with this straight edge, or I could put in a really slim, tall triangle there to fill that out. So I'm going to try to piece everything, except maybe the circle up there may end up being appliqued. And then you can see that I have some spaces that I need to fill in. I have a few, and this I want to embellish more. I will probably extend it and embellish more. You can see that my black and white stripes are filling in various places. And that may be what I use as kind of a filler or a separation if I think I need one. In some cases I already have it that give it some contrast and separation. And in some places I may add it in. Here, this could maybe have some black and white stripe in it, but it's got bordering black and white stripes there. Lots of choices, and I could agonize over this for hundreds of years, or I could just start to put it together. Now, the general basis for this, of course, is Alice falling down the rabbit hole and finding all this chaos. So when I did this original piece, which could be Alice in Wonderland, Alice Wondering is what I'm calling it, on its own, because here's the hole that she falls through, and then it's pretty calm here, very straight, not a lot going on, and then all of a sudden there's a lot going on. And so I want that general idea for the layout for this. So there's lots of stuff going on down here. This is probably going to be up at the top when I get there. I think I'm probably just going to have some plain black and white, maybe just white, and then just have all the chaotic stuff here and have this wider at the bottom. So I want to add more on here, maybe make it a almost triangular shape here as she comes down the hole, and then it sort of expands into the whole of the world. So that's my general plan. And I need to do some filling in. So I'm thinking, I have a few pieces here that I've just, as I've had leftovers, I have made into half square triangles, or I guess I have a lot of half square triangles here that I can just fill into spots. And obviously this is not to scale, but you can see what I mean. So I can start to fill it in, and some of these half square triangles, perhaps it's most appropriate for them to be toward the top, and then crazier stuff going on down here. So that, I think, maybe what I'll do to start off is to start to put some of these pieces together. For example, these two, I can pull those out. That one's off to a side. Actually, I could do this too. And in some cases, I may need to add a little bit on or take a little bit off. And I have that option here, for example. I could add some more on here, or I could take a little off of this. I'm not sure. I want to leave some seam room here. So I think I might just add a little something over here. Could be white, which would blend it into the background, but I think I want to do, well, next up it should be white if we follow that. Or I could do something over here, which again would be white if I follow this pattern of alternating. Let's see if I could do a really, it will be a narrow band of this wide stripe. I think I might try that. I'm just going to start putting these together. It's not the end of the world if I don't like it and have to rip out a seam. I have been known to have to do that. So let's start out doing that and then add these two together. So I'm just, it's kind of like a mish-mash quilt, and I'll just start piecing sections together. When I went hunting for the extra wide stripe, I found a couple other stripes. That is bothering me. Sorry, I have to press that. So I could have that stripe, which looks perfectly in keeping with it. I could use this stripe, which is just a little bit wider than that one, which would also work. Or I could do that wider stripe, but in a diagonal, because this is chaos after all. It's going to be pretty narrow, so I don't know if it makes a whole lot of difference. Straight on, diagonal. This is another thing I could spend 100 years doing. Let's go, well, see, I do want some chaos, but I also want the eye to not be so distressed looking at this that it loses, it just stops looking because it's too much. So I think I'm going to go with the straight extra large stripe, and again, it's going to be very narrow. This I will probably end up, may not have cut that wide enough actually. This I may have to trim out a bit to make it straight, so that, let me think about what, I didn't really have anything next to it. So I'll build something onto it, which I'm going to leave it this way for now. I think I'll cut this strip wider though, because once I get the seam in there, that's not going to be wide enough for those to match up. I'll use this elsewhere, so it's not a big deal. I really think I want the wider there, so I will cut a wide strip and add that on, and I promise I won't come back until then. I am pressing these seams open, by the way, because I have all kinds of things going on, and who knows what's going to connect with these seams, and I also am trying to avoid the whole shadow through aspect. A couple of random musings as I'm going. I can of course use curves in here at any point, and I can also add in more foofara and chaos nonsense after I start putting things together. So I can start to tie some of these blocks together by creating maybe some stitching across it, maybe some threads or bias strips, something. Turn this on its side, you can see more of it. So that's a start on putting it together. Now I know, let's see, up at the top on the right, you can see that I have that wave effect, which is, let me find the correct one, looks like this one. Oops, on top of this. Pay attention, Karen. So I can either, again, add on here or cut off there. I think what I'm going to do is make this straight. I was thinking about, sewing the curves in there, which I could certainly do. This is up more toward the top, so it is theoretically less chaotic. But I have a piece here started that is just the black and white wave, which if I continued that on, maybe that would be better than this piece, and put this piece further down. This is kind of a nice transition into a lot of chaos, which is this baby. So do I want this straight across, or do I want to curve there to add it on? I think I want it straight across. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to center it here. That will allow me some room to decide if I want to trim this or if I want to add more to it. So that gives me a little wiggle room there. So I'm just going to do a straight cut across here and add it on there. It's almost a little heartbreaking after working hard to get those waves. No, not so hard actually, to cut it straight. And I don't know that it was exactly parallel to things. It might go that, actually I did pretty well, didn't I? I could have angled it this way more and it still would have been fine, because we're figuring out things as we go, and I could add something in. So there's one section so far that I had planned out. And then next up is going to be the next section over, which is going to start, I'm going to not do the circle at the top just yet. I may do some more things that it doesn't look quite so much like a baseball. I've got nothing against baseball, but not necessarily the look I'm going for. It might end up just being, come to think of it, a plain black circle that she falls down, maybe with a little bit of white in the middle. So I'm going to leave that off for the moment, but connected to that is to be this piece. You can see that I'm not doing strict columns there, which is cool. So next to it, I've got some other stuff going on that I may need to piece. So no, it's a pink one. It's a pink one over there. I have so many pieces. Where are they? Where are they all? I may have to go in search of that piece. Or is this it? Yes, this is it. It's just Oh, I got to do something to preserve that curve. I may have to do a little something with a stripe, black and white stripe. Not a very wide one, I just need to. Or it could go straight. Because there's enough movement and diagonal movement going there that it would be all right. And then what do I have underneath here? I want to have sections that I can actually piece together without having to do a bunch of laid in stuff. So I'm actually not going to attach it to this piece until I have this wider bit finished, and then I can build out this piece to match that. This is how mish-mashy goes. So let's think about this. And I don't want to attach these two until I have this space accounted for. And I could do that with, I have some geese, sort of reverse pineapple geese things here. I don't think that's what I have there. Now my brain is having a hard time putting things together. All right, then I had another big stripe here. What do I do with my big stripes? Or here. So do something like this to add on to it. And then I need something down here. And at that point, I probably will break it off and finish with that section so that when I get down to the next section, I hope this isn't going to, oh, it is going to make things scream a little bit. But when I get down to this section then, I can change the width of that. So I can make that so that it goes further out, and I add on to that. It's just, you build it by sections and you just keep matching, piecing to the section next to it. It's kind of hit or miss, but it's kind of spontaneous and fun at the same time if you don't worry too much as you're going along, if you don't overthink it. Definitely want to put some thought into it. It's just not randomly slamming things down and sewing them together, but you don't want to overthink it, or you'll be climbing walls before you know it. And it will take you 100 years to climb the wall because you're still trying to figure out what you want to do. I think this video is maybe going to be a little bit disjointed, but that's sort of how it goes with mish-mash quilts, as I call them. I wanted to show you about some of my decision making here and what I'm doing. So I'm trying to create this section that is going to be wider than the section above it. So it's really not that important what the section above is, but I have this piece, and then I want to add this onto the bottom, but I'm adding it to this piece, so I have to put something on to this so that I can then attach it to this piece. And I do have some of the solid colored fabric. Well, they aren't all solid, but the fabrics from here, not just the black and white stripes. So I've opted for a pink here to sort of pull into this pink in a vertical sort of dropping through the hole sort of effect. So I am going to add on whatever I need to here in order to get this at least roughly the same so that I'm not chopping off so much of this geese piece here, pineapple geese piece. So now that I've got it sort of lined up here, I've got plenty of extra over here, of course. So I need about 1 inch finished, which means I've already got a 1/4 inch here. So I need to cut this piece 1 1/4 inch, which will give me the amount that I need in order to, oh, nope, I'm going back, never mind. This is going to be stitched onto here as well. So this, sorry, froggy throat today. So this actually strip needs to be this width because that includes the seam allowance here. So in fact, I want to cut this to about 1 inch wide, and then that will fit on with that piece. And the length down here is probably not going to be exactly correct, but it looks like it will make kind of a oh, maybe I want this to be even wider. What if I did that? Ooh, I like that. And maybe even turn this a bit. Kind of like that. How am I going to do this? That would mean that I could put this piece on here, then this piece, sew that on, and then I can put that on. So I think what I'll do is cut this. Yes, I'm just going to cut this to match up with that. Then I can sew this piece on here, and I can do the trimming later. And then I'll be able to attach that. And I don't need to match up these seams because that's just going to be part of the wonky chaos, but still giving the eye a little bit of rest because it's got that solid pink color. And then that can be the last step. So first step is going to be to add this on. Next step will be to sew that section on there, and then I can decide how I want to slice that in order to attach this. It's just this process of adding on or cutting off where you need to in order to get it to match up to the next piece that you want to put on. So it's section to section, make additions to these two sections in order to fit into that section, and that's really all this process is. So it's probably not going to be a very long video today because I don't know that you need to watch me sit here and sew things together, but I will try to check in every once in a while so you can see how it's going, what I'm doing. Probably won't get it all pieced today, to be honest. So next step, I'll get this together. Or it could be a long video because I'm going to pop on a lot to tell you what I'm doing. There are some cases, for example, on this seam and this seam where I am pressing it toward, I'm not pressing it open, I'm pressing it to one side. And I'm doing that because I have all of these seams along here, and pressing toward that, even if I pressed it open, that's going to create a lot of bulk under there. It's going to double up that bulk and actually distribute it more because these are at an angle, so it's just going to make the whole seam bulky. So I am pressing it to one side, and I've made sure that this pink edge of the seam is overlapping. It's actually further over than the part of the seam underneath so that I won't get that shadowing. I will, of course, need to trim the threads, but that will make things easier and neater, I think. So now I am going to make sure I straighten these two out, or one of them out, and then I'll just stitch them at whatever angle I decide I want to stitch them. And then, of course, I have some trimming here, but in general, I'm going to leave the extra until I am ready to stitch this to another piece, another section, because I don't know what I'm going to need or want, and there's no harm in me leaving it there until I'm at a place where I need to make that decision. All right, so next up, these two sections go together. I have a limitation here on how slanted I can get this because I run out of room up here. But I do want to have a bit of pink showing down here, so I have to make sure I've got at least a 1/2 inch there so that I've got some pink at the bottom. So I'm just gonna kind of cut it and see what happens. I can also, no, I'm not going to do that. We're just going to do this, and it's going to get very narrow here at the bottom. I may in fact lose some of that in the seam when the section below goes on, but I can live with that and be perfectly happy. And the pink goes back in the scrap pile. And now this piece will fit on there. So I've added in a filler, and it's just a plain filler, but having it bleed into that color, sort of flow into it, and then having this angle on it makes it more interesting without the eye going wild. All right, and this section gets put with this section. Here is the finished section, and I think this is close enough down here that I can just trim this, and same up here. So they may be at an angle, but at least they won't be jagged. So that will probably happen before the next piece goes on. Now this one is going on this piece, but clearly we have to fill something in here. So again, I'm just going to start making a section, and that's probably going to be pretty close to what I need. Might be a little bit shy. And so I could either add in a very narrow strip of something. Ooh, might be kind of fun to do a little narrow strip of pink to pull up there. And it's going to be a very narrow strip, but I think that would be kind of fun to do a narrow strip of pink going up there. And then of course up here I still have space that I need to fill in with something. And that's where I can bring in like some 9 patches that I have, or some of those half square triangles that are still here somewhere. And I'm wanting this to be not too busy, because again, this is the top of the composition, which is supposed to be calmer toward the surface. And I decided I didn't really want the, well, that might be a way to extend that a bit though. So then I could just put in some different half square triangles, and I can make them as large or small as I need them to be. And these HSTs haven't been trimmed or anything. I still have a lot to go up here, which you can't see very well, which you can't see at all, actually, can you? So there's a lot of space still up there that I need to fill, but I'm going to worry about just a section of this at a time. So I'm going to put together some half square triangles, and I don't want them to be in like a pinwheel sort of thing. I just want them kind of random. And I like that this is sort of melding in there. I might do this over here. Get that to sort of, do I have one with, can you see if I have one that has this with a pink edge to it? And I don't think I do. I could even do kind of a wild This is not your usual half square triangle, obviously, but that might be a good filler someplace I have to, you know, I've got two things coming in at an angle, so that might be something to save. Here, I can do pretty well with a straight sort of thing, not angled. All right, if I'm going to have a pink strip here, what if I match that up over there so it will sort of blend in with that or flow into that narrow pink strip. And that's all this is going to be, is just thinking about all those things to, first of all, make sections so they fit together. But then when you are doing fillers, how do you want to do that filler? I could do another black and white stripe in here. I could do this color and just extend it. The thing about doing that is that this would not be extended into it. And I would not be interested in doing another little piece that adds on to that to extend it. It would just, I'm not interested in doing it. I could, of course, trim over here, but that will probably lose me a corner there, which may or may not be okay with me. I could make this sort of an arrow shape if I wanted to, maybe. So I could have an arrow going there, although I would want it going down, wouldn't I? Going down. Or I could just do them randomly. Not sure what I want to do there. I could do both of them going down, but that's a little too, I don't want to say precious exactly, but it's a little too, yeah, that's what you'd expect kind of thing. Helps the eye move down. Except I really, really would like this piece to be over here to blend. Oops, it's gone. Well, there's going to be confusion. Alice is maybe going to flow up too. I don't know. I really do want that pink on the side in order to, yeah, there's just no way this way too. Oh, yes, I can. I just have to use my head, don't I? There we go. Okay. So I think that's what I'll do, and then I may trim these enough to fit with that, and then that goes together, or I may decide I want to add another strip in here because I don't want to trim those down. So first on my agenda is going to be putting a narrow pink strip here. I don't have a lot of that pink left, so I'll add a very narrow strip here. Actually, I'll make it reasonably wide so that I can trim it to whatever width I need eventually. Then I'm going to put these four together and add to those. It's nice to have things going together. I've been looking at and making these things for a long time, and it's nice to see how they might come together. All right, pink strip there, and putting those together. We're kind of outgrowing our space here, but these sections are almost ready to go together, except that I need to fill in up here to the top of this piece. And the top of that, I think I want to be white because that's still above ground. This, I think, though, I want to add in a little bit just to make this less abrupt, a straight line there. So I think I'm just going to piece randomly across here with these half square triangles. Then I will add some white on to finish that out. And then I think we'll be ready to put that all together. I have discovered that I do not have any pure white, or I guess cool white. I have only the warmer white, which I don't really want to use here, but actually I do have, this is a white on white, which you probably can't tell on video. I think I do have some of that I could use up here, but I didn't want to use the warm white If I had used it elsewhere, it would be all right, but this is all the pure white, I think. Maybe that isn't. It's hard to tell. It's a very cloudy, gloomy day here, so it's a little hard to tell even in natural light. But I may go get a piece of this white on white and try that here. And then you'll also, maybe you can tell here that this is a curved piece. So when I do the next section that would go on this, then I want to think about whether I want this curved or I want to cut it off. And, you know, I can tell you right now I want it curved. So that will be a subject for another day. This, I think I also want to be a curve up here so that it isn't quite such an abrupt straight line as Alice is falling. You can see that that was curved, so I think I also want to do that here. It may mean that I do a piece of this red first and then cut the curve into that so it's sort of matches this, though it doesn't need to match it exactly. I may go do that, and then we may call it a day for this project. Moral of the story, if you look in enough bins in my studio stash, you will find what you're looking for. I did find some good bright white. Now I want this to be a curve. I may or may not want it to be something like this, like move in that direction. I tend to think I want it to be like this in opposition because honestly, I don't know that I want to try to match up that curve. I think I'd rather have it offset. So I'm going to lay these both right side up. And this is, the white is my limiting factor here. And I've cut it a little larger because I'm not cutting a seam allowance here, which means I'm going to need to be able to have a little wiggle room for adjusting for the fact that the seams are going to be taken out of this. All right, so these two pieces I'm going to sew as a curve, and I don't need to pin or anything. I'm just going to go slowly with needle down, and I will come back when that's finished, and then we'll start laying out this section finally. It's getting, well, we're getting there. I have decided that I maybe want to try to match this up. The other options are to have that up there or down here, which I guess maybe I'd go with the up here before lowering it. I just am not sure that if I try to match that up, it's really going to, well, I've given myself leeway this way and this way so that I can try to match it up. So I might do that. And here I noticed that this is just ever so slightly warm and this isn't. So it just depends on which piece I'm at, I guess. I had a very warm white earlier. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do then is to stitch this or is it? Yes. And then leave this wide open because I want to be able to trim it to whatever I want and then add this piece on. It's not going to be very much, is it? And do I really want it to, does it really need to match up? Just thinking here. I'm sure you're telling me your opinions. I value your opinions, I just can't hear them. I guess that would be a decent contrast. It doesn't even have to match up in the arc so much as just sort of be at the same level. Or maybe that's what Alice tripped on and when she went down the hole. I don't know. Alrighty. Okay. So this does have to be a specific place though in order for this to fit on. So I am going to, first of all, I'm going to trim this even with that. And then I'm going to match this up, but leave a lot of the, just barely catch that in a seam. These really are very different whites now, but there we are. All right, got this matched up pretty decently. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how long I want that red piece to be, and it's probably not going to be very much. So I need it this much plus 1/2 inch because I have to allow for the seams. And so I need 1.5 inches from there. Alrighty, you can see I stitched it just enough to make sure I got it connected there. And now I'm doing 1.5 inches. I'm off the mat, but I will cut that afterwards. So now I am ready to, there's a strip. I am ready to add this piece on down here and then stitch that seam, and I can trim that side then. Now all I have to do is trim along here and trim there, and this section will be ready to go, which can go on to then this section if I'm ready for that. I'm not sure that I am. And then we have this section, which I believe goes this way. You can't see that, but I will lay this out and take a photo of what we've done so far. I think we've made some good progress. And we'll be ready to continue with it on another day. All right, feeling pretty good about starting to put those blocks together. They've been staring at me, taunting me for a long time now. Those of you who've been with me for a while know that, because it's probably been taunting you as well. Another thing I want to do today is just do a little commercial for a company, a designer that I have no connection to. I'll get my act together here. And it's for, oh, by the way, this is my tote bag. My carry-all's getting filled with things, including these little Bitsy boxes, which are just the cutest little things. And these are designed to go with my carry-all here. This is the, let's see much of the lining. This is the lining of my carry-all. And of course, this is the outside of it. So they are just, and I saw the pattern and I thought those are really cute, but whatever would I do with those? And in fact, I'm going to, these two I've already filled. This one has little wonder clips in it, and I'm going to carry in my carry-all. And then this one has the extra bobbins. Do you remember the bobbins? So I ordered extra bobbins for my FOF, and I will carry some of those in the other bag. And then I am making Bitsy bags for each of my fellow quilters in our small quilting group. We're doing a retreat later this month. So I've just been making these little Bitsy boxes for them in with styles of fabric that I think they might like. Actually, I like all of these too. I really love this one with the rulers on it. Anyway, they are pretty quick to make. I sort of, you have to go through the patterns and just, you know, everyone learns differently. Everybody reads differently. It's snowing. Squirrel. Anyway, it is from Ticklegrass Designs, and it's called the Bitsy box. Now, I have no connection with them. They don't know me from Eve and vice versa. But it really is, the pattern's well done, and it's pretty quick. I could do one of these probably in under an hour now. And one of the reasons I'm bringing it up is because if you have slightly larger scraps than we sometimes work with here, you could potentially make Bitsy boxes from them or something similar. So this takes, in terms of fabric, it just takes a 6 by 9.5 piece for the outside and a 6 by 9.5 piece for the lining. And then, of course, a zipper, and it uses Bianni Soft and Stable, which I have tons of that floating around. So just an idea for you. Aren't they just cute? I just think they're the cutest things. Love them to death. So thank you, Ticklegrass Designs. Ladies, gentlemen, combination. I really like the pattern. Thank you. All right. Here it is again. It's Ticklegrass Designs, the Bitsy box. That's a really cute pattern too. All right. So that is it for this week, I guess. Next week, I will plan to continue with Alice Wondering. I'm not sure how big it's going to end up being. You know, I could get to all of these pieces put together and decide I want it larger, and so I make more stuff for the bottom. I'm considering just having it sort of taper out, so start fairly narrow with the design and the chaos, and then just have it kind of taper out as she gets down and into the world. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hope to see you next week. In the meantime, be well, be safe, be happy, be quilting. Peace out.